But the truth is that I was afraid. I was afraid of finding out that I couldn't do it. I was afraid of wasting my time. I was afraid of being mediocre. Welcome to A Year Without Fear, the podcast where we stop letting fear make our decisions and start building the creative lives we actually want. I'm your host, Bethany Morris, and over the next year, I'm going to take you along with me as I write a novel, attempt to turn content creation into my full-time career, and confront my deepest, darkest fears. Welcome to A Year Without Fear, the podcast where we stop letting fear make our decisions and start building the creative lives we actually want. I'm your host, Bethany Morris, and over the next year, I'm going to take you along with me as I write a novel, attempt to turn content creation into my full-time career, and confront my deepest, darkest fears. To the inaugural episode of A Year Without Fear. My name is Bethany Morris, and I'm 32, and for the past decade or so, I've been working in communications, 6 of those years having been in political communications. And over the past 32 years, with a brief stint in LA being the exception, I've really been avoiding going after what I really want out of life, and that is to have a creative career. The truth is, I am a huge introvert who has been hiding with the excuse of, not being ready to start yet. But recently, I hit a major wall with my mental health that forced me to slow down, take a break, and kind of come to terms with how I've been living. And that brings me to A Year Without Fear, what I want to do this year. Okay, the first thing I want to do is write a novel. I would like to finish a manuscript from beginning to end. The second thing I want to do is build a community with like-minded creatives who are also kind of tired of waiting for their lives to begin and want to start working on projects that really light them up and bring them joy. The third thing I want to do is get healthy mentally, physically, and creatively, because I know from firsthand experience that you cannot create from a place of depletion. I also want to establish a new career in content creation. I want to make this my full-time's work by the end of the year. And finally, I would also like to move, preferably to New York City, but I am keeping my options open. So here is what I am promising you. I promise for the next 52 weeks to show up weekly. I promise to be brutally honest about the failures, the fears, and the embarrassing moments along the way. And I promise to take you along for the journey. I want this to be a space where we're growing together. This isn't me teaching from the finish line. This is us figuring it out together. All right. So this week, we're talking about the fear of getting started. For me, this is really the foundational fear and the one that has been running my life for far too long now. Recently hit a wall. I realized that I was exhausted, not just physically, but also on a deeper level, on a soul level. And I was fundamentally, I guess, depleted from living a life that was driven by fear instead of driven by living in my full purpose. And if you're anything like me, you have quote unquote done everything right. You went to college, you got a career. For me personally, I girl bossed a little too close to the sun. I have a career and a position that I would have killed for 10 years ago, even just, 5 years ago. I remember thinking in college that if I could only have a job like Olivia Pope when I graduated, that I would be happy. But that didn't turn out to be as such. In my heart of hearts, I found myself deeply unhappy. I find myself deeply unhappy. And this kind of all came to a head a month ago when I realized there is kind of nowhere to go but up. There's nothing to do but change. There's nothing to do but get started. And I've been saying that I have been wanting to write a novel for as long as I can remember. I have notebooks full of ideas and a million outlines, but I never started. Not really. I dabbled, I planned, I outlined a million times, I researched, I took classes. Pretty much I did anything but commit to the act of beginning a creative career, including start several failed businesses. And I told myself it was because I wasn't ready, because I wasn't good enough, because I didn't have enough time, because I needed to have a stable income before I did something creative. But the truth is that I was afraid. I was afraid of finding out that I couldn't do it. I was afraid of wasting my time. I was afraid of being mediocre. So instead of branching out, I stayed safe. And honestly, that safety ended up, I guess, suffocating me until I reached my breaking point just a few weeks ago. And what I've learned since then is that number one, not starting erodes the trust that you have in yourself. Every time you say, I'll start on Monday, or I'll start next month, or I'll start next year, and you don't, you prove to yourself that you can't be trusted. Maybe your intuition has been screaming at you, but you've stopped listening. And eventually your intuition went quiet, leaving you like you felt like you are lost, that you're just kind of floating around with no direction. You have become someone who talks about, these big dreams and goals and reaching them, but you don't actually live them and pursue them. The second thing is not starting blocks you creatively. For me, an unstarted project takes up so much mental real estate in my head. It's like I can't let go of it. So, personally, for me, and maybe for you as well, it feels like you can't move on to the next thing because you're haunted really by the last thing. And your creative energy kind of gets stuck or, I don't know, dammed up with nowhere to go. And that creates a cycle where you start suppressing your emotions. So that's the third and final thing. Not starting suppresses emotions that you would have otherwise let out creatively. For me personally, this manifests as being really angry. I have a lot of bottled up anger at myself. I have jealousy towards people who have started their creative careers, creative endeavors. I have grief over the lost time. Um, and I have so much fear that has been basically calcified into paralysis. And this is all just to say that, eventually the cost of not starting is higher than the cost of failing. So here's what I'm doing to get started and what you can also do to get started. Number one, make a public commitment with a specific date. So tell 3 to 5 people or the entire internet that you're going to be starting a project on a specific date. Post it somewhere public, whether that's on social media, in your group chat with your friends, or here in the comment section. That way, the fear of backing out can actually become leverage for you to continue. This works for me because I find that external accountability kind of overrides external excuses. It's kind of like once you go to yoga class, you work harder because there are other people around you, So once you kind of decide to start and make the leap and start doing your creative projects, start content creation, start drawing, start painting, whatever it is, you can, yeah, have that external accountability pushing you and driving you forward. The second thing I would say is to define your minimum viable start. So you don't want to say something like, I want to write a novel. That's too big a goal, especially if you've been stuck for a long time. Instead, say, today I'm going to sit down and write 200 to 500 words, or I'm going to film for 5 minutes, or I'm going to sketch for 10 minutes. You want to do something very small so that you can't talk yourself out of it. And I find that this works for me because it kind of overcomes the all or nothing instinct, which I have and is something that I really struggle with. I think that starting imperfectly is better than not starting at all, but that is easier said than done. Number three, you want to identify your specific start sabotage pattern. And what I mean by this is mine is over researching, over planning, and over outlining until the project feels too big to begin. Yours might be perfectionism or comparing yourself for your work to a finished product, the urge to suddenly need all this equipment to start on a project that you've been putting off for weeks, months, maybe even years. So you want to write down that sabotage pattern because when you name it, you acknowledge it and it works because you can't outsmart, you can't outwork, you can't outplan a pattern that you don't first acknowledge. And then number 4, I would say would be to create a start ritual. Something simple that signals this is when I'm going to work on my project. For me personally, I'm taking some extended leave off of work, and every Tuesday and Thursday until December 14th, I am in a writing productivity club that is from 9:30 to 1:30. So I have that ritual in my week and that structure in my week that says, okay, from the hours of 9:30 to 1:30 on Tuesday and Thursday, I will be writing my novel and working on my novel. And so far, that has gone really well. This is my second week doing it. I'm recording on Wednesday, October 29th, and my next writing club is tomorrow. Okay. So, along with that, you want to maybe have a specific playlist. Maybe you want to light a candle or light incense. Definitely put your phone and computer on do not disturb. I think once you start to ritualize something, it feels less like you're using willpower to start something and more like you are setting the stage and making it something that you look forward to. And this works because you remove decision fatigue and starting becomes automatic once you ritualize it. And then the final thing is that you want to separate starting from succeeding. So, starting doesn't mean that it's going to be good. Starting doesn't mean that you're going to finish. Starting just means that today you chose courage over comfort. And that is enough. That's something to be commended, especially if you, like me, has been stuck for years of your life at this point. So this kind of lowers the stake from I need to change my whole life in a very short period of time to I just need to do the next right thing in the order of operations. Speaking of the next thing, your action step this week is going to be to pick one thing that you have not been starting, tell one person your start date, and then start it. Film it, write about it, tell me in the comments, and we will start together. Okay, so today we talked about the fear of getting started, the fear that has been quietly running my life, and I'm sure has been a part of your lives out there as well. So we explored why not starting is actually more painful than failing. And we also covered practical ways to begin. So thank you so much for being here on day one, for taking the chance on this messy and unproven journey. I'm so grateful that you're here and for considering that maybe your fear has been leading the decisions that you've been making too. This channel is for creatives who are haunted by their unfilled potential, for anyone who's tired of letting fear run their decisions, for introverts who are ready to stop hiding and being seen, and for people who want community and not competition. I want to make this a safe space where we can build something where starting imperfectly is celebrated and fear doesn't get the final say. So, yeah, this has been episode 1 of A Year Without Fear. I am Bethany Morris, and I will see you next week. Now, go start something.